How many times have you heard that valuation is more an art than a science? I completely disagree with this definition. It's fundamentally wrong. Valuers are not artists that work for themselves. On the contrary, valuers are professionals that need to gain trust and respect of final user evaluation and clients. So, valuations are not works of art, but professional judgments supported by external evidences. Valuation is not even a science. Of course, academic research has developed techniques and tools, sometimes very sophisticated, for helping valuers. But again, valuation is not just the knowledge of techniques. It needs professionalism. Without professionalism, the valuation landscape is a Far West. And the risk is that of Gresham law. Bad money drives out good. Bad valuation drives out good valuation. Professionalism is based on two elements, professional framework and professional infrastructure. Consistent with many other professions, at least in the economic field, professional framework is based on valuation standards, guidelines, and professional standards, including code of ethics. Professional infrastructure is a mechanism that guides and enforces professionals' behavior. What is of interest here is a professional framework and professional infrastructure are essential for developing the profession at both global and domestic level. As you know, in valuation, jurisdiction matters. So many times you need domestic standards and guidelines that are more detailed than the international standards. Anyway, domestic standards have to follow the same scheme and hopefully the same framework of IVS. Valuation standards, best practices that for IVS are TIPS, so technical information papers, and professional standards. My task here is to present the experience of a mature economy as Italy in building evaluation profession. In Italy, while there are many high-quality evaluation specialists, there is not a professional framework governing the evaluation profession in terms of conduct, education, designation, and performance. And there are few, if any, formal consequences when low-quality evaluations are performed. Under our law, CPAs can do valuation, they do them, but in most cases, too rarely, once in a life, once every 5 years. So there is a serious problem of poor quality evaluation here. Without a valuer designation, continuing education and so on, the mass of CPAs cannot perform well. 3 years ago, Bocconi University, the leading university in business and economics in Italy, believed that the time had come to promote a robust framework for those who performed valuations. And the first step was the creation of OIV, Organismo Italiano di Valutazione, the Italian valuation standard setter. OIV is a private, non-profit organization promoted by the Italian Association of Financial Analysts, the Italian Association of CFO, the Italian Association of CPAs, the Italian Association of Auditors, the Italian Stock Exchange, and Bocconi University. OIV is a sponsor of IVSC. The principal goal of IVSC activity in the first 3 years was to issue the Italian valuation standards. We maintain the Italian acronym PIV, Principi Italiani di Valutazione, PIV, also in English translation, just because otherwise the acronym would be IVS, the same of International Valuation Standards, of course. The next step will be to promote the constitution of an institute, similar to the Institute of Valuers and Appraisers of Singapore, a benchmark for us, with a particular focus on education in business valuation. We want to create a center of business valuation excellence. We need the domestic valuation standards substantially because our law refers to many bases of values different than from the basis of values of IVS. The intrinsic value is one of these. As you know, in continental Europe, in particular in business valuation, pricing and valuing are perceived as different activities. Between intrinsic value and price, there could be a gap, sometimes a big gap, also in active markets. So we needed a clear definition of intrinsic value for different scopes of valuation, first of all, minority oppression valuation. The exposure draft of PIV, Principi Italiani di Valutazione, will be issued for comments at the end of this month. This will be the first step in a long path for developing a domestic professional framework. But I don't want to speak about this. Instead, I want to tell you an interesting experience of IV. 3 years ago, a few months after its constitution, OIV was requested by our Security and Market Authority, CONSOB, to issue a document on guidelines in impairment testing, AIS 36. We were in 2011, 3 years after the beginning of the financial crisis, with negative perspectives for our economy and with no significant impairment losses of goodwill by listed companies. Before showing you the impact of the document on impairment of goodwill in financial statement 2011, I have to say that the positive reaction of the community of business valuers to the document was a test of how significant the space of improvement in quality and valuation was, achieved by just giving reasonable common guidelines to professionals. After this long introduction, let's move quickly to the slides. Valuation is a dynamic process. The valuation environment changes continuously, so while standard setter and VPOs have to update standards and guidelines for guiding professionals in interpreting new facts and circumstances, professionals need continuing education and progressively more specializations. There was a time when a single valuation professional might have been able to value any type of asset, tangible asset, intangible asset, financial instruments, business. The emergence of complex valuation techniques to value complex items has made the use of multiple specialists a much more common and sometimes necessary occurrence. Let's come back to 2011. At that time, more than one high-profile stakeholders raised concerns about valuation for financial reporting. Even the International Accounting Standard Board wrote a letter to the European Security Market Authority concerning the poor implementation of IFRS in valuing Greek government bonds by European banks. The slide shows the differences in losses for two banks. The first is a French bank, the second a German bank. As you can see, the differences are huge. At the same time, CRUF, the Corporate Reporting Users Forum, an association of investment analysts, wrote a letter to the International Accounting Standard Setter underlining the needs of more detailed guidelines in discount rate calculation, intangible assets, and liabilities valuation. So, at that time, many stakeholders were demanding an effort for reducing the variations in implementing principle-based accounting standards in a completely new context. Now I want to show you the situation before and after the issuing of the document Goodwill Impairment Testing in a Time of Economic and Financial Crisis issued by OIV. The English version of the document is downloadable from our website. This is a short presentation in the slide of OIV. The document was not authoritative, but our SEC asked for compliance or explanation. Before issuing the document, as shown in the slide, the majority of Italian listed companies showed a price lower than book value per share. The red line of the graph shows the price to book value ratio equal to 1. The median of price to book value at the end of 2011, before the impairment losses of goodwill, was 0.79. Until 2010, Italy was at the 13th position of the European countries listed according to the ratio cumulated impairment losses of goodwill since 2008 over gross goodwill. After the guidance issued by OIV, Italy became the second best country after Great Britain, as shown in the slide, with more than 20 billion euros of goodwill write-off. This experience left us confident that the role of a domestic standard setter in promoting best practices and professional behavior, at least in a mature economy as ours, will be essential until we have autonomous and well-established valuation professional organizations able to self-regulate and address the needs of stakeholders. Thank you very much.